Hey everyone, it's Andrew from WP Shopify, and in this video I want to show you exactly how to go about connecting your Shopify store to WordPress. Now before we begin, just make sure that the plugin is installed and head over to the Connect tab within the Settings section, and you should see a list of 5 input fields here. These will be values that come from Shopify after we create a private app, and I'll touch on that in a moment. But before we do that, let's head over to the Settings tab, because there's a couple settings here that I want to make sure are configured correctly before we begin syncing. Now, one of those settings is the webhooks callback URL. And this is responsible for keeping WordPress and Shopify in sync. This value needs to be publicly accessible, and it needs to point to your WordPress site that you're using. If you're on a local dev environment, just make sure that you're proxying your local host somehow. Here I'm using ngrok to do that. Most people shouldn't have to change this URL, but just make sure that it's publicly accessible. The second value is the use titles for alt attributes. By default, this is turned on, and what it'll do by default is it will sync whatever alt attribute value you've set within any given image in Shopify to WordPress. So now the reason why I have this as an option is because during the syncing process, it can slow down the syncing quite substantially if you have, thousands of products. So if you uncheck this, what it'll do instead is it'll use the product title as the alt attribute instead. So if you're at all concerned about the slowness of the syncing process, you can do that as a trade-off. Otherwise, you can keep this checked and it'll pull in whatever alt attribute you use for any given image. Okay, so let's head over back to the Connect tab and let's start the syncing process. So open up Shopify and head over to the Apps section and click the Manage Private Apps link towards the bottom and create a new private app. Now give your app a name. Here I'm just going to call it WP Shopify. And head over to the Review Disabled Admin settings here. And just make sure that all of these are set to read and write access. So I'm going to go and change these here. And what this will do is it'll allow WordPress to basically stay in sync with Shopify and access the Shopify data directly. And for the analytics, we just want read access. Okay, so let's head over to the Storefront API and let's make sure that the allow this app to access your storefront data is checked. And this will allow the plugin to interact with the front end cart experience. And click Save. Okay, so now that the private app is created, you should scroll down and see a list of your keys, your API keys. And these are going to be the values that we fill in within the plugin settings. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling these in. So start with the API key, paste it in here. Same with the API password and the shared secret. And the storefront access token is way down here. And the domain is the value within your URL here. And essentially what it is your store name that you gave your store when you first created it. And then this myshopify.com. So just copy this portion here and paste it in here. And we can begin to connect the store. Okay, so at this point, WP Shopify will begin importing all of the Shopify data, including the products, collections, images, etc. Basically everything that embodies your store, it will sync into WordPress. And for the technically inclined, the data itself is stored in custom tables, custom WordPress tables, which will allow you to make custom queries to the database. And it's also stored as custom post types. So you can use the native WordPress functions to display your data in any fashion you want. Now, I'm using currently a dummy store that has about 1,500 products. And so with that many products, it's going to take probably another 3 or 5 minutes. So depending on how large your store is, the process will take a certain amount of time. So I'm going to wait for this to finish, and I'll be back in a moment here. Okay, so now that the plugin has been synced, let's exit the modal. And you should see that it's connected here now. And if we head over to the products tab, we should see a list of all the products that we have in our store. And like I mentioned before, they're saved as custom post types. So this is a custom post type here called products, and we can go into each one and we can have any number of custom fields assigned to them, etc. So if we go back here now to the collections as well, you can see the list of collections. Here I just have a bunch of dummy collections set up here. And that's how you connect your Shopify store to WordPress. Now, in a future video, I will go over exactly how to show your products and what that process looks like. And I'll talk to you soon.